I stood on tiptoes, my small hands gripping the wooden frame of the door. My heart pounded with excitement, anticipating the return of my parents from their long day at the restaurant. Beside me stood my older brother, his tall frame casting a protective shadow over my small figure. The familiar scent of anticipation and home-cooked meals wafted through the air. Suddenly the bell chimed, its metallic echo slicing through the tranquility of our abode. Without hesitation, we darted towards the door, our laughter mingling with the jingle of keys and the rustling of grocery bags. But as the door swung open, the sight that greeted us shattered our blissful bubble. 4 figures, silhouetted against the twilight, stood where our parents should have been. Their presence was ominous, lurking like shadows in the fading light. The room seemed to grow colder, as if a menacing gust of wind had swept through, sending shivers cascading down my spine. My brother's face had a mixture of confusion and concern etching lines upon his face. "Who are you?" my brother demanded, his voice laced with a mixture of apprehension and a flicker of defiance. One of the intruders, his eyes smoldering with malice, smirked in response. "We're just here for a little chat, kid. Why don't you and your sister come downstairs? We'll keep it nice and cozy." Their words freezing us in our tracks. We exchanged glances, our wide eyes mirroring the uncertainty that gripped our souls. I grasped onto the fraying edge of my brother's shirt. As we descended the creaking staircase, the faint glow of the television illuminated the room below. A hush fell over us, stifling our voices as the intruders herded us toward the flickering screen. Their rough commands echoed through the space. I found myself seated, a spectator in my own home, while my brother endured a more sinister fate. The intruders seized his wrist, binding them tightly with the familiar cords of his treasured Nintendo. My small hands trembled with unease, unable to grasp the severity of the situation unfolding before me. Driven by curiosity, I inched closer to my brother, my innocent fingers reaching out to explore the unfamiliar knots. It was a mere gesture of childish wonder, an attempt to understand the unfathomable. Yet the weight of the intruder's gaze bore down upon me, his gun an ominous presence in his hand. "Stop," he hissed, the words slicing through the air like a sharpened blade. The command held a menacing edge, enough to silence my inquisitive impulses. Fear knotted in my stomach as the intruders ransacked our haven, their steps echoing through the house. My brother and I were left bound to a sturdy beam, our freedom stolen away. Time ticked away slowly, each second an agonizing reminder of our captivity. In the dim light, my brother's determined eyes met mine, silently conveying a promise of resilience. With guns gripped tightly in their hands, the intruders, their faces masked by shadows, ordered my brother and me to descend the staircase. Each step I took seemed to weigh heavily upon my trembling legs, the weight of fear pressing down upon my shoulders. The cold metal of the gun, glinting malevolently in the dim light, left no room for doubt. Our lives were at the mercy of these intruders. We were ushered into the living room, where a flickering television cast eerie shadows across the wall. The stale air hung heavy with tension, mingling with the scent of uncertainty that permeated the room. The intruders, their voices gruff and commanding, barked orders, their words a chilling reminder of their control over our fate. "Sit there," one of them growled, gesturing toward the worn-out couch with a gloved hand. His eyes bore into mine, his gaze a chilling warning that dared me to defy his authority. I complied, sinking into the faded cushions, my small frame trembling with a mixture of fear and confusion. The intruders methodically scoured our home, their footsteps echoing through the hallways like a symphony of invasion. Cupboards were ransacked, precious heirlooms snatched away without remorse. Each item they seized was a piece of our history torn from our grasp, a violated sanctity of our home. Bound and helpless, my brother and I watched as the intruders faded into the night, disappearing like ghosts into the darkness, a void where their menacing presence had once been. Our world had been upended, our sense of security shattered by the intrusion. As we waited, trapped and vulnerable, The minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity. The door swung open, and there they stood, our beloved parents. Their faces a mix of anticipation and dread. Shock flashed across their features as they took in the scene that had unfolded in their absence. "Mom, Dad," I cried, my voice filled with a mix of fear and relief. It was terrible. They had guns, and they tied us up. My mother's eyes filled with tears as she rushed forward. Her embrace, a tender shield against the harsh realities of the world. I was amidst this nocturnal symphony that my mother awoke, her eyes widening in horror as she gazed upon a ghastly sight. Perched on the edge of her bed, a figure emerged from the shadows, gripping a gleaming knife with an unsettling familiarity. Moonlight glinted upon its wicked blade, casting an otherworldly glow that seemed to dance with malevolence of the intruder. A shudder traveled through my mother's fragile form, rendering her motionless. Her voice locked within the depths of her fear. Petrified, she became a statue, unable to escape the clutches of terror that tightened its grip on her trembling heart. The intruder muttered unintelligibly, a haunting murmur that echoed through the room, its meaning lost amidst the haze of dread that clouded my mother's senses. His words swirled like ethereal phantoms, tantalizing, close, yet forever out of reach. And then, as if fate intervened, the neighbor's dog erupted into a cacophony of barks, piercing through the stillness of the night. The sudden disruption shattered the suffocating silence, startling the intruder into action. Rising with an unhurried grace, he vanished into the abyss, his presence vanishing like a ghostly specter. A sliver of relief washed over my mother as she heard the back sliding door glide open, followed by the muffled sound of his departure. The line of light that once spilled through the curtains from a distant street light now vanished, leaving her surrounded by an impenetrable darkness. A momentary respite descended upon her trembling form, allowing her to gather her shattered nerves and summoned the strength to act. She seized the phone, her trembling fingers hastily dialing my grandfather's number. Panic laced her voice as she spoke, her words barely escaping her lips. There was someone in the house. The urgency in her tone conveyed the gravity of the situation. My grandfather, a pillar of steadfastness and protector of our kin, resided only a mere 5 minutes away. He dwelled with my 3 younger teenage brothers. Within the span of mere moments, the screech of tires sliced through the night, heralding their arrival. In the dimness, they fanned out, forming a protective circle around our besieged home, their bare feet touching the ground with a quiet resolve. Together they advanced, scrutinizing every nook and cranny, their eyes darting like hawks seeking prey. In their pursuit of justice, they uncovered a haunting truth. Every door, a portal left ajar, a siren's invitation to the malevolent forces that sought to trespass. The vile intruder had eluded capture. His phantom presence lingered, tormenting my mother's already frayed nerves. Yet the aftermath revealed an enigma of his insidious deeds. Muddy footprints marred the pristine innocence of the laundry room floor, leading to a small window left open, seemingly an invitation to our feline companion. But the intrusion went beyond the mere mischievousness of an interloper. A black negligee lay in tatters within the laundry basket. The cat, unknowingly part of the interloper's game, had been fed and offered a bowl of milk, a sinister act of manipulation amidst the chaos. The living room bore evidence of his audacity as well. Whiskey, mingled with ice and coke, a twisted cocktail fashioned by the intruder's unhinged whims. In the fridge, there was tainted innocent eggs nestled within the fridge, a culinary sabotage that defied reason. Leftover roast meat, meant to nourish, had been ransacked, devoured by the audacity of an unwelcome guest. His rampage extended even to the mundane, as he callously sliced through catalogs that lay dormant upon the kitchen bench. He snapped a photograph of the stovetop and another of me sleeping, captured by my mother's camera, a haunting reminder of his eerie proximity. The knife, a harbinger of destruction, had been stolen from its rightful place in my mother's kitchen. In the wake of the intrusion, the police meticulously gathered fingerprints, their efforts dedicated to unveiling the identity of the phantom. Yet their investigation yielded not, as the intruder remained an enigma, an invisible specter without a criminal record to trace. As I stepped into the spacious living room of our newly constructed house, the faint scent of fresh paint fills the air. Laughter and cheerful chatter echoed through the walls as my sister, 3 cousins, and their parents gathered around the television, their eyes glued to the screen. The vibrant colors and animated characters on the show reflect the joyful ambience that envelops us all. Suddenly, the mirthful atmosphere shatters like fragile glass as a chilling silence descends upon the room. The door bursts open, and a figure cloaked in darkness emerges, a mask obscuring their face. In an instant, fear seizes my heart. A cold sweat trickles down my forehead as my mind races to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before me. This is Pakistan, a country where my true beliefs must remain hidden. The intruder directs their aggression towards my unsuspecting uncle, viciously attacking him. Painful gasps and cries fill the room, punctuating the heaviness of the air. The intruder's voice, with menace, demands money and jewelry from the terrified adults. In a frenzy of panic, the adults scurry out of the room, leaving us, the children, behind with this enigmatic and dangerous presence. A palpable tension hangs in the air as we huddle together, our eyes reflecting both terror and confusion. Amidst the eerie silence, broken only by the stifled sobs of my cousins, one peculiar figure stands out, an anomaly of laughter and jest. With an audacious spirit, he tries to infuse levity into our collective despair, weaving jokes into the fabric of our fear. It's as if his laughter dances on the precipice of madness, masking a deeper, hidden purpose. Then another intruder barges in, their voice dripping with disdain and resentment. They declare themselves from Afghanistan, attributing blame to Pakistan for their country's devastation, and vow to extract retribution by robbing our nation. We remain oblivious to the chaos unfolding on the other floor. We are isolated, disconnected from the adults, our protectors. We are the vulnerable souls caught in a vortex of uncertainty, clinging to each other for solace and reassurance. Just when the room seems engulfed by despair, the intruder's focus shifts from their elusive vendettas to the allure of wealth. They yearn for hidden treasures, rumors of gold bricks hidden within our sanctuary. My heart pounds in my chest as the intruder's words hang in the air like a menacing fog. As my gaze sweeps over the room, I notice the absence of chaos in certain corners. My personal belongings, like my cherished nexus, remain untouched, spared from the clutches of the intruder's greed. In that fleeting moment, I found myself grateful for the small blessings that fate has bestowed upon me. Fear coils around my heart like a venomous serpent as the intruder's demand hangs in the air. The cold barrel of the gun feels like an icy finger pressed against my temple, threatening to extinguish the fragile flicker of hope that still burns within me. Desperation and raw emotion spill from our lips as we plead for mercy, for sanity to prevail. The power of persuasion intertwines with the fragility of our lives, walking a tightrope between life and death. Miraculously, the intruder relents, withdrawing the threat that loomed like a dark cloud over my existence. As the sound of fading footsteps echoes into the night, a collective breath is released, and the weight of fear begins to lift its suffocating hold. Slowly, my father descends from the upper floor. We gathered around him. The room feels heavy with tension as he assesses each of us, his gaze lingering on the bruised and battered form of my uncle. A sharp intake of breath escapes his lips, testament to the pain that resonates within him, both physical and emotional.